In 2014, Emily Weis launched Glossier, a direct-to-consumer startup set to revolutionize the beauty industry by putting customer experience at the front and center of their business strategy. While the incumbents grow fat and stale by imposing their ideas on what they believe is best for their customers, so the products and styles they believe are best for their customers, Glossier is taking a different approach. One that focuses on connecting the customers together to talk to each other and share what they like and want. So basically empowering the customers to drive product development ideas. Today, Glossier is valued at a staggering $1.8 billion. Crazy, right? And today, we're gonna learn from Glossier. I'll share the conversion optimization principles that Glossier is using on their product pages to convert traffic into high value customers so that you can learn from them and apply the same principles to your e-commerce stores to boost your conversions and avoid losing valuable sales. All right, let's jump in. All right, guys, we're on Glossier's website and I'm excited to share the principles they're using, the conversion principles they're using to convert traffic into customers. I would love your thoughts on these as well. What do you think about these ideas I'm about to share with you? Let me know in the comment section, all right? So in order to convey these ideas over to you, I'm gonna focus on one of their bestsellers called the Cloud Paint. And the first principle we're gonna dive into is social proof. So what is social proof? When people are uncertain, they'll most likely look to others for behavioral guidance. And I know most of us think that we're unique snowflakes and all our ideas and thinking is original to us. But the fact of the matter is that we're social creatures and we copy what people around us do. So we look to others around us in order to figure out what's valuable and how we should act in any given circumstance. And to prove this, I want you to carry out this experiment for yourself. Just go outside, go to a shopping mall, a crowded street, or wherever you've got a bunch of people hanging out and do this, just do this. Look up for a minute, right? People might think you're a little bit cuckoo, but just look up for a minute and watch what happens. Everyone, to a certain extent, a lot of people around you are also going to look up to figure out what's so valuable that's up there that you're looking at, right? And that's social proof to a certain extent. People look to other people to figure out what's valuable. And a philosopher called Rene Girard talked about this as well. So I want to share a principle with you, and it's about mimetic desire. And this might illustrate the point to a certain degree. So Rene Girard had this phenomenon called mimetic desire, which is similar to what I've just talked to you about. So the mimetic desire is described as the foundation of his theory. Man is the creature who does not know what to desire. He turns to others in order to make up his mind. We desire what others desire because we imitate their desires. So in actual fact, we look into others to figure out what's valuable. And this also applies to e-commerce because generally speaking, before someone takes any action, they're going to be looking at others to figure out whether they've taken that action and what result they got from that. Was it a good result? Did they have a good experience? And the more you can show people that other people have had a good experience with your product or service, or in this case, your product, the more they're likely to convert. So let's talk about how Glossier is using the principle of social proof in order to remove the friction and also streamline our conversion process. So over here, you can see that they are using this badge on their product picture. So this badge that says Glamour Beauty Award winner for 2021. So right away, they're using the social proof principle of authority, right? So people in authority, when people have bestowed on you any sort of recommendation or approval, other people are looking at that to say, hey, look, if someone of that stature has bestowed on them some approval, then whatever they're doing must be good. And in this case, Glamour magazine has awarded this product the Beauty Award of 2021. So, in consumers' eyes, this product must be something to be written home about, right? So that's one area that they're using social proof. And I'm going to point out other areas they're using social proof as well. So they've used authority there, and authority is a form of social proof. They've also used authority here. So dermatologist has tested, formulated without fragrance, right? So in other words, they're saying that this has been tested by the dermatologist and it's been formulated without fragrance. So Obviously, just as a reader scans this, they're going to be thinking, oh, you know what, a dermatologist has tested this, so it must be good, right? That's another form of social proof that they're using here. Now, what they've also done, which I think is pretty nifty, is that rather than what most brands do, which is wait till the end of the page in order to display their reviews, they've highlighted the most important reviews, so the most compelling reviews, and put it on the add to cart button, right? So if you're having any doubts, you're going to see these reviews, and that's probably going to sort of push you over the edge to purchase. And what I like about these reviews is that, they're very compelling. They sort of hone into, what the values of the customers are, and also show that other people have found these reviews helpful, right? So this is something that you could certainly do on your site. How can you use like snippets of reviews? And I know a tool for this that's very useful that you can use to get this done on Shopify is Yotpo. So get the review snippets just below your add to cart button, just to provide that level of social proof as well. So over here, you can see that a number of people have found this valuable, and you can also see that in aggregate, they've got 3,870 reviews, right? Not only have they mentioned it here, but they've also mentioned it here as well, right? You see, this like very subtle, but the fact that 3,870 people have reviewed this is nothing to be snuffed at. So they've got 3 review highlights over here, and that's something that I would highly recommend you do on your store. How can you highlight your most important reviews rather than having to have customers scroll all the way to the bottom to look at them, right? How can you do this above the fold? So that's another one that they've used. And just right below that, they're not messing about, they're going into the reviews as well. So you can see that a lot of their page is dedicated to social proof, right? So over here, you can see that, what they've done that I really like is they've not just shown you all the good reviews. So there's a study out there that Robert Cialdini, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Robert Cialdini, the author of Influence, was involved in. And what he said was that based on all the review scores that they tested, 4.7 seemed to do the best, right? So 4.7 did the best. And you can see that they're not just going for, just 5-star reviews, because that's super inauthentic, right? Like no product with 3,870 reviews is always going to have a 5-star review. So you're going to have little bits of like, 1-star reviews, 2 stars, and so on and so forth. So the point of the matter is, don't be afraid to show your negative reviews. And over here, what they've done that's really important, it's very instructional, is that they're giving you the ability to interact with these reviews rather than just having it as a hard-coded snippet, a hard-coded element. They allow you to interact with these reviews and ask us a very important question. How do people like me think about this product? Or what do people like me think about this product? And that's really important because everybody's always looking for what people like them think about certain concepts, certain products, and this enables them to just answer that question. So you can see here, you can answer the question by filtering by skin type, skin age range, skin tone, and photos, right? And this is also another way of displaying social proof, is by including photos of people who have used your product, right? You can see UGC photos in there, really conveys to the customer that this is not just for the elite, this is not just for supermodels, this is for people exactly like me. And you can then filter by, for example, this person hated the fact that it had chemicals and it had burns there, but maybe this is not necessarily a problem for you, right? So you can see that they've included as many reviews there as possible so the customer can make an informed decision. All right, so this is one area they've done that. And another way that they've used social proof is by including an Instagram feed. So they've included an Instagram feed in here, which I believe is very compelling, right? You can see that loads of people on Instagram have tagged them and have made reference to their products. So over here, you can see this person is saying that they've used the cloud paint in Haze. And I believe this is another product of theirs, the Boy Brow. I think it's a bestseller of theirs as well. So when a customer comes here and sees that so many people have used this product and had a good experience with it, then they're very likely to purchase, right? So this is a few elements of social proof that they've used. And one thing I want you to look at is the fact that most brands would adopt the approach of telling customers why they believe the product is good or why they believe the customer should buy that product. The way Glossier is going about it is that they're not necessarily trying to tell you that the product is the best in the market. They're letting their customers do that, right? So one of the things I want you to think about is, we've just talked about quite a few things. and I'm just going to go to the notes over here. One of the things I would like you to think about is how can you increase the proportion of your product page that's dedicated to social proof, right? As you can see here, a significant proportion of their product page is dedicated to social proof, and it seems to be doing well for them. Well, they valued at $1.8 billion. I bet it's doing something for them. So I'd like you to ask yourself that question. You know, I'm not here to tell you exactly what to do, but to just share some ideas and ask you and get you to ask yourself some questions that might reveal some insights that you may not have considered. So what can you do to improve or increase the proportion of your product page that's dedicated to social proof? So we've gone through how you can use authority, how you can use review snippets, so highlighting your most valuable reviews, how you can use review filters so people can answer the questions, what do people like me think about this product, and also how you can include an IG feed or an Instagram feed on your page so that people can see, UGC content from other customers. So the next principle we're going to dive into is visual hierarchy. So you all have probably heard the saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And that happens, as far as I'm concerned, offline and online. And I want to share how they've used this on their site because it can be very instructional and also help you to make sure you're highlighting the most important things, making sure that the most important things are doing the shouting for you. So whatever is most prominent on your site will get the most attention, right? So that's the key idea here. Whatever is most prominent on your site will get the most attention. Now, this begs the question, what is most prominent on your site? And should it be the most prominent thing on your site? Should it be the most essential thing on your site? So let's have a look at what Glossier is doing in terms of making sure that they're highlighting the most prominent things, or they're highlighting the most essential things to make them the most prominent things on their sites. So over here, I'm going to go back to the badge on the image. Now, this is very prominent, right? In terms of what's in the visual hierarchy. You can see that this is very prominent. The title here is very prominent. The value proposition is very prominent as well. And there are a few other things that are very prominent. But let's start with this. We've already mentioned this when we talked about social proof. They're making sure that this is super prominent. People already know about glamour, right? So, that clout that glamour has is going to be bestowed on them, right? So one could say they're borrowing a little bit of clout from glamour. Now, we've talked about how they've used this in the visual hierarchy. What I've also found really interesting is the fact that they're making the value proposition very prominent. And this is something that you should do. How are you making your value proposition? So your unique benefit, your product's unique benefits and features, how are you highlighting them to make sure that they're not hidden in a bunch of text? So over here, you can see that they've unearthed that. They've said the most user-friendly blush under the sun. Well, you can't argue with that, right? So, and also they've highlighted some of the interesting features that would be important for their customers. So a seamless buildable, something that, women who put up makeup would know about. Buildable gel cream blush that's enjoyable to apply and easy to wear. So the thing that they're trying to highlight here in terms of the value proposition is that this is a very easy to apply blush. I imagine the standard blush may not necessarily be super easy to apply. So they're highlighting the fact that it's enjoyable and easy to apply, and also it's got a buildable component. So in your case, how can you highlight your value proposition in terms of your unique benefits and features and make sure they're not hidden in a bunch of product description text? Now, something else they've highlighted without necessarily shouting about it is the fact that their product is special. Right, your product needs to be differentiated for people to, want to pay attention to it. People are always asking themselves, what makes your product special? Why is it different from other products? By the fact that they've highlighted why it's special, people are just going to assume it's special. So people may not necessarily just read through everything here. They've just said why it's special, and people are just going to assume that there's something special about this. So that's something that I thought was very interesting in terms of the visual hierarchy. And then further down here, what I think that they've done that's pretty good is, if you can't be bothered to read all the text that's there, they've provided you with a headline that says good to know. So this is all you need to know about the product. And these icons here are all emotionally resonant. They know what's going to be emotionally resonant with their customers. And this is something that you need to figure out. What is going to be emotionally resonant with your customers? And the way to figure this out is by understanding your customer persona. Have you created a customer persona profile? And if you have, What values do your customers have, and how are you going to make sure that your product is aligned with those values? And over here, you can see that they've picked out a few things. So easy, enhancing, buildable, cruelty-free. And I won't be surprised if these are things that their customers really value. And by mentioning this, they're making their product emotionally resonant. So that's something you should pay attention to as well. And something they've done is to make rather than just having filters for the colors, on most e-commerce brands, they will just have a drop-down filter where you pick the color you want. But here they've used color swatches. So the color swatches make the options very visual, and immediately the customer can see exactly what the product would look like on their face, right? So they're using color swatches there, which is really good. Another thing that they're doing is making the call to action button very prominent, right? You can see the call to action button is bold. It contrasts really well with the background and it's impossible to miss it, right? So one thing that you need to make sure is that all the important essential things that are persuasive, that are going to persuade customers to buy your product, are prominent on your site, right? Make sure that they're prominent in the visual hierarchy, and don't forget to make sure that your CTA is included in that as well. So let's go over to our notes to wrap up this point. So we've talked about making sure your unique value proposition is highlighted and prominent in your visual hierarchy. You're talking about your product differentiation, how you're special. Make sure that that's not hidden in a bunch of text. Use emotionally resonant icons if you can, just so that people can get the message without actually having to read all the text. Color swatches, if this is relevant for you, if you're in the beauty industry, and you feel that making sure that customers understand the color of your product will be important, then make sure you're using color swatches. If you're in the fashion industry and you want to show different colors of your apparel, then make sure you're using color swatches. And don't forget to make your CTA prominent. Now, the key question here I'd like you to answer for your brand is, what are the essential persuasive elements on your product page? And are these essential elements prominent? Are you making sure that customers can see them? All right, let's dive into the next one. So before we dive into the next idea, I just want to illustrate the importance of having really good visual hierarchy on your product page and in your website in general. When you look at this picture here, this image, and I ask you the question, what's the most important circle? What's going to come to mind? Most people are probably going to say blue. Like, the blue circle is the most important circle. And why? Because it's the most prominent. And this is exactly how people perceive the elements on your store. So just wanted to share this with you because I found this example very helpful for driving home the point as to why you really want to make the essential things the most prominent. So the third principle I'd like to share with you is perceived risk versus perceived value. And what this is all about is every prospect has reasons they're hesitating to buy your product. Every single prospect has a reason they're hesitating to do so, right? There's always an objection. And if they didn't have any reservations about your product's price, value, or relevance, then they would have probably bought it, right? And your job, or the job of your product page, is to address those objections, right? So let's have a look at this point over here. You want to address those objections because they're always perceived risks that people have when looking at the offer on your product page. And the way to think about it is, imagine a seesaw, and on one end you've got perceived risk, and on the other end you've got perceived value, right? You want the perceived risk side to be up, all the way up, and the perceived value should be the flat guy, right? So perceived values should always be, larger than perceived risk. And why am I saying perceived here rather than actual? The fact of the matter is, if your prospects haven't come across you before, this is the first time they've come across your website, they actually don't know whether your product is going to solve their problem because they had never used it. So, they're going to basically go, by their perceptions there. They're going to use their perceptions to figure out whether it's going to be a good deal for them to go through with or not. So the job of your product page is to stack the perceived value in the mind of your prospects against the perceived risk. So let's see how Glossier is doing it. So there's three simple things that they've done here in order to make sure that they're diminishing the perceived risk in the eyes of their customers. And here's how they've done it. Over here under the call to action button, You've got a little section over here that has Afterpay, and Afterpay allows you to split your purchase, because one of the objections customers usually have about products is the price, right? The price is too much and I don't think that I can actually go through with the purchase. And one thing they've done here to address that is to use Afterpay. So Afterpay is just below the add to cart button or add to bag button. And what you can see that they've done is that they've offered prospects the ability to split the payments into 4 installments, and each installment is going to be $450. And in the eyes of the prospect, they're thinking, you know what, all I have to do now is just pay $450 and I'm going to pay the rest later. So that technically reduces the price of the product in the eyes of your prospect. So that's one way you can do that. You can use Afterpay. And there are also other tools that you can use like Klarna as well. But Afterpay is one that I would highly recommend. So they've used Afterpay over here. Another thing that they've pointed out here is that they've got free and easy returns. That's something that customers always think about. Like, if I don't like this product, how easy is it for me to return it, right? Am I going to be stuck with it? Can I get a refund? And they've pointed out all of this over here. And one thing I would do if I was them, so if I was Glossier, what I would do to potentially see if that improves the performance of the product page is to, rather than have this open up as a new tab, I would rather have this open up as a pop-up, right? So have this open up as a pop-up so that customers can read it and then click off it once they're done. So you don't have to actually go to a new tab to have a look at it. Now, we talked about 2 ways Glossier has reduced the perceived risk in the eyes of their customers. Now, a third way, which is not super obvious, but I'd like to share with you, is by using product demo videos, right? So they've got this product demo video over here. They've got this lovely lady who's applying the blush to her face, which is going to answer the question, how does this product work? How can I use it for myself? And how should I apply it to my face, right? Because, it's not very clear to someone who hasn't used it before how it actually works in real life. So they've shown how it works and, demonstrated it, using this lady over here. So one of the things that you should think about is how can you do something very similar on your store as well, right? So let's go back to our notes. How can you offer customers the ability to pay in installments? How can you make sure that your refund and returns policy is very clear and simple? And how can you make sure that you're not, in the case of Glossier, they're going over to a whole new tab in order to answer that question? How can you make sure that you're actually answering it on your product page in the form of a pop-up, which can be exited out of very easily, or in an accordion? So that's something that you could use as well. And last but not least, how can you use a product demo video to show how to use your product? So, because one thing that's super important for conversions is clarity. How can you improve the clarity on your site about your products? And one way to do that is actually to show how to use your products in the form of a video, right? So it's, brings it to life. So the key question I've got for you here is, how can you handle the objections that customers may have or prospects may have on your product pages so that the perceived risk that they have of your products is diminished, is reduced? And this will just reduce the friction and enable them to go through with the purchase. So think about that and see how we can use some of these ideas over here to improve the ratio of your perceived value to perceived risk. No, you didn't think your boy was going to leave you hanging with just 3 ideas, right? No, I've got one more idea for you here. It's a bonus idea, and this one is all about loss aversion. So the key point here is that human beings experience losses asymmetrically more severely than equivalent gains. So let's have a look at this graph just to illustrate that, just to bring it to life a little bit. You can see that, if you win £100, this would be the level of pleasure you're going to get from that, right? So this is the positive emotion you're going to get from winning $100 or £100. Now, if you were to lose £100, this would be the negative emotion you're going to feel. So you can see that, in terms of amplitude, this one has a higher effect or much more pronounced effects on you emotionally than this one, right? So let me give you a couple of examples just to bring this to life, right? Now, just think about this. If someone was to, offer you a bottle of wine, a nice bottle of wine that's worth £300, you feel good about that, right? You'll be really glad to have received this gift. Now, think about the fact of, you're coming back home, you bought a $300 bottle of wine and you're walking back into your flat and you just drop it, smashes on the floor. Now, the level of pain, right? the hurt you're going to feel is going to be a lot more in terms of the negative emotions, going to be a lot more pronounced than the pleasure you would get from someone offering you that as a gift. So this is exactly what the statement over here means in terms of the experience you feel, that is symmetrically more severe than equivalent gains. And how this can be used in marketing is by making sure you're inducing a level of FOMO, so fear of missing out, in your customers. And Glossier have used this really well. I love the way they've used this, very subtle, but I'm going to share exactly how you can also use it on your store as well. So now, assuming that I'm a customer, or prospects, I've had a look at their store and I'm ready to go forward with it, right? Go forward with purchase. Now, what I can do here is, assuming I just clicked on the add to cart or add to bag. I've done this before, so I've got a few things in the cart. So assuming I've clicked on the add to cart, so this is what their cart looks like. And what I'd like you to pay attention to here is what they've done with regards to free shipping, right? So most people would include free shipping on their product page, and this is great. There's nothing wrong with doing that on a product page. But I think a much more valuable way to use free shipping, or to present free shipping as a good offer, is to use that in your cart. Because when you use it in your cart, you're providing them with something free, it's a free gift. You can think about it as a free gift, which if they don't go forward with, they're going to lose out on, right? So that's a free gift that, could be lost if they don't go forward with a purchase, right? So congratulations, free shipping included, right? You get free shipping, you get free standard shipping, right? So that's one thing that they've done. And another way that they've used this idea of loss aversion is with the free samples. So they've offered free samples here. So, rather than actually highlighting these free samples on a product page, they've decided to use it in the cart, which then tells me that, hey, look, if customers or if prospects land here and they're thinking, I don't want to go forward with this purchase, not only are they going to lose out on the free shipping, they're going to lose out on the free samples as well. And they've also used something that I found really interesting here is, they said congrats, right? So it's like trying to play with the commitment to the consistency bias, right? So someone has done something, you confirm, you congratulate them for doing that, and that makes them more consistent with that action, right? So let's go back to our notes over here. How can you offer free gifts in your checkout process? How can you offer free gifts in your cart so that if your customer is thinking about abandoning cart, they're really going to feel the pain of foregoing the gifts that you've given them, right? So how can you leverage FOMO, right? So what offers can you make in your cart and in your checkout process to induce the fear of missing out? And I believe this is one of the most important ones, especially if you're experiencing high abandoned cart rates. This is something you want to pay attention to. All right, guys, thanks for hanging in there with me. We walked through 4 conversion optimization principles that Glossier is using on their website and how you can apply this to growing your e-commerce business. So these principles are perennial, meaning that as long as we've got humans on this planet conducting commerce online, you can be sure that these principles don't have an expiry date. If you don't know much about me, welcome to my channel. My name is Amara, and this channel is all about sharing proven strategies to help you continue scaling your e-commerce business with less ad spend, less stress, and less overhead. If you like the sound of that, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to let the algorithm know you're on board. All right, see you in the next one.